Okay, so let us start in the usual manner by paying homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so today we are going to continue the reading from the book, The Great Disciples of the Buddha. And we have been reading on the story of Venerable MahaKassapa. And previously, when we read his story, we saw his relationship with other senior disciples, in particular Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Ananda. And with Venerable Ananda, because they are, let's put it this way, their style of teaching is quite different. So Venerable MahaKassapa, even just based on how he practiced himself, he was very strict, almost austere in his way of practice. Whereas Venerable Ananda is someone who, is more soft-spoken, more gentle in character. And so in the previous reading, those of you who missed it, it was recorded and it's available on the Samatha Vipassana Trust YouTube channel. And we read how on various occasions, Venerable MahaKassapa kind of reminded Venerable Ananda to be a little bit more careful with how he taught the younger monks and younger nuns. So today we're going to read about after the Buddha's Parinibbāna. Okay. Excuse me. So what remains to be said about Venerable MahaKassapa's relation to Ananda is closely connected with his leading role in the Saṅgha after the Buddha's passing away. At the I always pronounce this word wrong, so I hope it's correct. Pi and Paul. At the demise, is it pronounced demise? I should check earlier. I'm always confused. Is it demise or demise? Anyway, after the Buddha's passing, only 2 of the 5 most prominent disciples were present, Ananda and Anuruddha. So, as we have read earlier in the previous chapters, Sariputta and Mahamoggallana, both of them were actually older than the Buddha when they met the Buddha. And so they had passed away earlier that year. And MahaKassapa, with a large company of monks, was just then en route from Pava to Kusinara. So they were kind of on the way to Kusinara. Kusinara was where the Buddha passed away. The Buddha passed away between 2 sala trees in the forest near Kusinara. Okay. Or Kushinaga, present day. So during that walk, he happened to step aside from the road and sat down under a tree to rest. Just then, a naked ascetic passed that way holding a coral tree flower, which is said to grow only in the worlds of gods. So when MahaKassapa saw this, he knew that something unusual must have happened for the flower to be found on earth. He asked the ascetic, whether he had heard any news about his teacher, the Buddha, and the ascetic told him the recluse Gautama passed into Nibbana a week ago. This coral tree flower I picked up from the site of his demise. Among the monks in Mahākassapa's company, only the arahans remained calm and composed. So you can imagine they were, they had known the Buddha directly. So arahats were the only ones who were free from any form of clinging or attachments to feelings or emotions, etc. So they wouldn't be disturbed. So they were the only ones calm and composed. But those who were not yet the arahats and still unliberated from passions fell to the ground weeping and lamenting. Too soon has the Blessed One passed into Nibbana. Too soon has eye of the world vanished from our sight. There was, however, one monk in the group named Subhada, ordained in his old age, who addressed his fellow monks. He said, "Enough, friends, we do not grieve, we do not lament, we are well, rid of the great ascetic. We were constantly troubled by him telling us, this is proper for you, and that is improper for you, and now we can do whatever we like, and we won't have to do what we don't like." So that was what this monk called Subhada said. He's like, yay, finally, the Buddha's passed away, so we don't have to worry about him always telling us, oh, you must do it this way, you must do it that way. So in a way, he was trying to express his, I suppose, dissatisfaction with the Vinaya rules, I guess. Yeah. And not just the Vinaya rules, because clearly when we read from the suttas, the Buddha gave very clear instructions on how the practice is, right? So he probably didn't like that very much. And the Venerable MahaKassapa did not reply to those careless words at that time. And just then, he may have wanted to avoid striking a discordant note by censuring the monk or having him disrobed as he deserved. Now, you may think that, censuring the monk, like reprimanding the monk, yes, that should be. But maybe some can argue and say, oh, wow, have him disrobed, isn't that a bit too serious? Well, again, we don't know the full story because we weren't there. And sometimes it depends on the situation. If the monk's actions were enough to cause a schism in the Saṅgha, that means to cause a split in the Saṅgha, then it would be much better to have him disrobed, because causing a schism or a split in the Saṅgha is a very, very considered a heinous crime. Yeah, so it would be bad for him as well in his next life when he's reborn. But as we shall see later, Mahākassapa referred to this very incident shortly after the Buddha's cremation, when he spoke of the need to convene a council of elders to preserve the Dhamma and Vinaya for posterity. Now, however, he merely admonished his group of monks not to lament, but to remember that all conditioned things are impermanent. And he then continued his journey to Kusinara together with his company. Until then, the village chieftains at Kusinara had not been able to set the Buddha's funeral pyre alight. So this had been a week. All the chieftains, everyone who wanted to pay respect to the Buddha, they had already done that. Even the deities and all that, they had done that. They had come, paid homage, but the chieftains couldn't light the fire to cremate the Buddha's funeral pyre. Then the Venerable Anuruddha explained that the deities, invisible but present, wanted to hold up the proceedings until Venerable MahaKassapa came and paid his final homage to the master's remains. When MahaKassapa arrived, he walked around the pyre 3 times, so that's customary. How we pay homage. So he walked around, circumambulated clockwise 3 times, reverently with hands clasped like this, and then with bowed head paid his homage at the feet of the Tathagata. When his group of monks had done likewise, the pyre burst into flames by itself. Hardly had the bodily remains of the Tathagata been cremated when there arose a conflict among the distribution of the relics among the lay folk assembled and those who had sent messengers later. But the Venerable MahaKassapa remained aloof in that quarrel, as did the other monks like Anuruddha and Ananda. It was a respected Brahmin named Dona who finally divided the relics into 8 portions and distributed them among the 8 claimants. He himself took the vessel in which the relics had been collected. Then the Venerable MahaKassapa himself brought to King Ajatasattu of Magadha his share of the relics. So those of you who probably remember the stories of King Bimbisara or the mentions of King Bimbisara in some of the suttas, by this time his son Ajatasattu had become king. Yeah. So the story, if I remember vaguely, was that Prince Ajatasattu was kind of brainwashed by Devadatta. So King Bimbisara was actually one of the strong lay supporter of the Buddha, and he was always consulting the Buddha, not only for the practice, but also in terms of how to govern his kingdom of Magadha. And so Devadatta obviously was always jealous and always conniving. And so he brainwashed that time Prince Ajatasattu to imprison his own father, King Bimbisara, and take over the throne. And so when King Bimbisara was in prison, every morning he would look out of the window of his prison because he could see the Buddha and his retinue of monks coming down from the caves near Vulture's Peak where they live, to go for their alms food. And for King Bimbisara, that was really enough for him to continue his practice in the prison cell. Yeah. After he died and all that, eventually King Ajatasattu repented and he realized what wrong he had done. And the story goes whatever. But by the time the Buddha passed away, he was King Ajatasattu. So the relics for King Ajatasattu were brought by Venerable MahaKassapa. And having done so, he turned his thoughts to the preservation of the master's spiritual heritage, the Dhamma, and the Vinaya. And the necessity for this was plainly demonstrated to him by Subhada's challenge of the monastic discipline and his advocacy of moral laxity. So MahaKassapa took this as a warning of what the future held in store unless clear structures were established now. And if Subhadra's attitude were to spread, and there were a group of monks who shared that attitude even while the Buddha was alive. So yes, we read a couple of stories before in the past chapters, and sometimes even in the suttas itself, where we read how some monks, they try to challenge the Buddha or even other senior disciples. So even when the Buddha was alive, there were certain monks who already were having such attitude. So if such attitude were to spread, it would rapidly lead to the decline and ruin of both the Saṅgha and the teaching. And to prevent this at the very start, Mahākassapa proposed holding a council of elders to rehearse the Dhamma and Vinaya and preserve them for posterity. And with that suggestion, he returned to the monks gathered at Rajagaha, and the monks agreed. And at their request, Mahākassapa selected 500 elders, all but one of whom were arahans. And one exception, who was not an arahat yet, was Ananda, whose position was ambivalent. So Ananda, because Ananda was the Buddha's attendant for many years. And Ananda, when the Buddha was alive, the Buddha promised to Ananda that if the Buddha gave a sermon to somewhere else when Ananda was not present at that sermon, the Buddha would repeat that sermon back to Ananda. And Ananda had this gift of amazing memory. So he could remember all the discourses, all the sermons given. Now, as he had not yet succeeded in reaching the final goal and becoming an arhat, he could not be admitted to the council. But as he excelled in remembering all the Buddha's discourses, his presence was essential. The only solution was to give him an ultimatum that he must reach arhat before the council began, which he did on the very night before it opened. Thus, Ananda was admitted to complete the 500 members of the first council, and all other monks were to leave Rajagaha for the duration of the meeting. So the story is Venerable Ananda, just as he was about to retire to sleep the day before the meeting, he attained arahantship, final Nibbana. Now, as the first item of the council's proceedings, the Vinaya, the code, so the code of monastic discipline, so the code of the precepts of the monks and the nuns, the Vinaya was recited by the Venerable Upali, the leading Vinaya expert. So Venerable Upali was also one of the senior disciples, and his you can say specialty was the Vinaya. He was very well versed in the Vinaya. Then the second item was the codification of the teachings laid down in the suttas. And here it was the Venerable Ananda who, on being questioned by Mahākassapa, recited all those texts which were later collected in the 5 collections, the Nikayas, as we know today, of the Sutta Pitaka. So we have Digha Nikaya, long, Majjhima Nikaya, medium, Samyutta Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya, and Khuddaka Nikaya, I think. 5 collections or 5 baskets. And finally, some special matters concerning the Saṅgha were discussed. Among them, Ananda mentioned that the Buddha, shortly before his death, had permitted the abolishment of the lesser and minor rules. Now, when Ananda was asked whether he had inquired from the Buddha what these minor rules were, he had to admit that he had neglected to do so. Okay, so now different monks expressed various opinions about this matter in the assembly. And as there was no consensus, Mahākassapa asked the assembly to consider that if they were to abolish rules arbitrarily, the lay followers and the public in general reproached them for being in a hurry to relax discipline so soon after the master's death. Hence, Mahākassapa suggested that the rules should be preserved intact without exception. So it was decided. So it was decided at the first meeting, the first council, we call it. Don't change any of the vinyas. Keep it as it is. Okay. So after the holding of the first council, the high regard in which the Venerable MahaKassapa was held grew still greater. He was seen as the de facto head of the Saṅgha. His seniority would have contributed to this, as he was then one of the oldest living disciples. Later on, Mahākassapa handed over the Buddha's alms bowl to Ananda as a symbol of the faithful preservation of Dhamma. Thus, Mahākassapa, who had been generally recognized in the order as the worthiest in succession, on his part chose Ananda as being the worthiest after him. They are worthy of respect. Okay. Now, there is no report in the Pali literature about the time and circumstances of Mahākassapa's death. But a Sanskrit chronicle on the Masters of the Law offers us a curious account of the great elders, and according to the northern Buddhist tradition, there's a little, we'll come to that later, okay? According to this record, after the first council, Kassapa realized that he had fulfilled his mission and decided to attain final Nibbana. So he transmitted the Dhamma to Ananda, paid his final respects to holy places, and entered Rajagaha. He intended to inform King Ajatasattu of his impending demise, but the king was asleep, and Kassapa did not wish to wake him up. And thus he climbed to the summit of Mount Kukkatapada alone, sat down cross-legged in a cave, made the determination that his body should remain intact until the coming of the future Buddha Maitreya or Maitreya. And it was to Maitreya or Maitreya that Kassapa was to hand over the robe of Gautama Buddha, the very same rag robe that the Blessed One had bestowed on him at their first meeting. Then Kassapa attained final Nibbana, or according to a variant, the meditative attainment of cessation, Nirodha Samapatti. The earth quaked, the devas strewed flowers over his body, and the mountain closed over him. Soon afterwards, King Ajatasattu and Ananda went to Mount Kukkatapada to see Mahākassapa. The mountain partly opened, and Kaspa's body appeared before them. The king wanted to cremate him, but Ananda informed him that Kaspa's body must remain intact till the coming of Maitreya. Then the mountain closed up again, and Ajatasattu and Ananda departed. Chinese Buddhist tradition locates Mount Kukkatapada in southwest China, and Chinese legend abounds in reports of pious monks who, on pilgrimage to the mountain, managed to gain a glimpse of Kaspa's corpse sitting in meditation posture, awaiting the arrival of the next Buddha. So that part I'm not too familiar, yeah. So yeah. Not too sure about that, but that's according to the, let's see, there was a note on number 18. Let's see if we can find it. Probably towards the end. Oops. Oops. Let's find it here. Notes on Mahākassapa. 18, okay. So this chronicle is reproduced in full in the Asoka Vadana and in extracts in the Divya Vadana and other works, including the Sanskrit Samyuktagama, the Northern Buddhist counterpart of the Samyutta Nikaya. And the summary given here is based on Etienne Lamotte's History of Indian Buddhism, although the sources use Sanskrit for consistency with the rest of this biography. We have used the Pali equivalents. Okay. Any questions about what we just read? Whoops. Let me go back to, whoops. Feel free to also any comments or anything. Just trying to go back to where we finished. Oops. Does anyone have any thoughts? Let's try to go back to where we finished. So,
it's very interesting. I have read, maybe you have read to us some talk information about Mahākassapa. Is there anything more? I don't think I have read all that many of Mahākassapa.
There's only one short chapter left, and it's just the verses of Mahākassapa, just some verses from the Thera Gatha. So we don't find, I mean, you know, when we are reading the Majjhima Nikaya, for example, we don't find a lot of references to Venerable MahaKassapa. There are quite a number to Venerable Sariputta or Venerable Ananda, for example, but not a lot. And I think it kind of has maybe, I'm just wild guess, yeah. That, oh, okay. So yeah, I'm just a wild guess, because when we read about how Mahākassapa leads his life and the way he practices, you know, he even until his old age, when the Buddha is telling him, you know, you're getting old, you know, probably you want to consider staying put in like a simple monastery or something, so that you don't have to, you know, always go to the forest or something and go on alms round. It gets a bit tiring, don't you think? Because you're getting old. And Mahākassapa say, no, this is how I want to practice, and this is how I dedicate my life to the practice. Even until his old age, he's always like, go to the forest, live in the forest, practice in the forest, go on alms food every day. So maybe because of that way of practice, I'm pretty sure he would have given quite a number of discourses. He has his own group of students, monks as well, but perhaps he traveled more. I don't know. Maybe didn't stay put so much, like, you know, the Buddha towards his final years spent a lot of time in actually, a large part of the Buddha's later life he spent in Jetavana Monastery in Shravasti. And so that's why when we read the suttas, a lot of times we're like, thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was staying in Jetavana Monastery in Nyanaponika's park. You see that very common, right? And then sometimes in the bamboo grove. So Venerable MahaKassapa didn't have that such an inclination. So I'm assuming that he was always traveling, and probably Venerable Ananda wasn't in the same place. So a lot of the discourses, like what we just read from the first council, Venerable Ananda recited the first council. So I think I heard from, I can't remember which Dhamma talk I heard, but I can't remember if it was Bhante Vimalaramsi or where I heard it from, to be honest. But how it worked was, because there were 5 Nikayas, we just read in Nikayas, like Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Samyutta, Anguttara, Khuddaka. So each of them were, let's say, was a responsibility of one of the senior disciples after the Buddha's passing, So because those days, the whole passing down of the teachings or the Nikayas was through oral tradition. That means through recitation. So you can imagine, let's say, for example, the Majjhima Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, the book, which is like 140 odd suttas, are recited in memory again and again by, let's say, a school of monks who, let's say, is headed by one senior disciple. Then that particular group of monks is responsible to keep intact that particular Nikaya. So let's say one would be memorizing the whole of the Digha Nikaya, and they would pass it down through oral tradition, through regular recitation of the suttas. Then another group would be responsible for the Majjhima Nikaya and reciting it. And this went on for quite a number of years. I think a couple 100 years, the oral tradition way of passing, until the practice of writing down the suttas on ola leaves were done. And they were first done, I think, in Sri Lanka, if I'm not mistaken, because many years ago when I had the chance to go to Mihintali, which is said to be the place where Arahat Mahinda had arrived in Sri Lanka to spread the teaching. So Arahat, those of you not familiar with the story, the King Ashoka, the famous King Ashoka in India, had a son and a daughter. And the son was Mahinda, and he was an Arahat. And the daughter was Venerable Saṅgha. So those who are familiar, around about in December every year, there's what's called, it's quite a big celebration, especially in Sri Lanka and other parts of the world, where Saṅgha Day is celebrated to kind of celebrate how the Bhikkhuni Saṅgha flourish and so on. And so anyway, coming back to ola leaves, yeah. So I remember when visiting Mihintali, which is a place in Sri Lanka, there's, I hope, still, when I went there many years ago, there's a museum there to show how the ola leaves are processed. So it's a type of leaf which is quite broad, And there is a process to kind of prepare it until it almost looks like paper. And then at that time, then only the scriptures were put onto writing. But before that, for a couple of hundred years, they were all passed down through a oral tradition. Now I've forgotten what was the comment? What was the question? Yes, sorry, talking about Mahākassapa and how we don't read of his instances in the suttas. Yeah, so I don't know is the honest answer, but I'm just assuming that maybe where he taught, or maybe his style of teaching was he was constantly on the road, whereas Venerable Ananda wasn't there or something. I'm not sure. Is my constant answer. Oops, there's a question in the chat. Gita says it was interesting. I'm glad that it's interesting to you, Gita. Yeah, we find these interesting, and as I mentioned in earlier readings, book readings, earlier sessions, it's when we read these stories about the senior disciples of the Buddha, it's not just about reading the stories as a storybook, it's also to gain inspiration, how their practice was, how they and how much faith they had in the Buddha and the Dhamma and the Saṅgha, and how much their dedication was to the preservation of the teachings of the Buddha. And we read of Mahākassapa and Baddha Kapilani and how their sacrifices, etc. Also the sacrifices of Sariputta and Moggallana and Mahamoggallana and their journey, how much of that faith, in the teachings, and also in the faith that there is that truth of the end of suffering as taught by the Buddha, and their practice itself, their level of practice. So just to be inspired, I'm not saying we can match that type of practice level, but I'm saying to arouse faith in our own practice as well, in the Dhamma as well. So that's why we read these things. Are there any questions from any of the new, I won't say new, but non-regulars? So Alok or Sinal or Gita, and any thoughts, any questions? You don't need to mention, I mean, if you don't feel, but yeah, just to get some feedback. No, just give me 1 second while I pop another lozenge. Don't know what's wrong with my throat. 1 second. If there are no further questions, I just thought I had a chat with, WhatsApp chat with Bhante Dhamma earlier. I was referring to Bhante's post on the WhatsApp group. Was it yesterday? That was talking about the practice of giving and how the Buddha had in several occasions talked about the benefits of giving and the return that we get. I mean, I'm not saying that when we give, we are expecting something. It's not like, we should not have the mindset of, when I give this, I should get that in return, or I'm expecting that this will bring benefit to me and stuff like that. But I thought, so when I thought about that, then I remembered the Majjhima Nikaya number 142, the Dakina Vibhanga Sutta, or the exposition of offerings. So this has been read before a number of times. If you're interested, you can search in the Samatha Vipassana, excuse me, Samatha Vipassana Trust YouTube channel. I won't read the whole sutta here, but I just thought there was some, it's not a very long sutta actually, but I'll just read a number of the verses here that talks about. So 142, Majjhima Nikaya 142, talks about how the Buddha enumerated that there are 14 kinds of personal offerings, the type of gift or offering that we can do, and how it's laid out like in terms of levels. So I'll just read from a paragraph number, not paragraph, but this is written as section 5, number 5. So those of you who have the Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, it is page 1103, section 5. So there are 14 kinds of personal offerings, Ananda. So this was what the Buddha was saying to Ananda. So the background behind this discourse was that Mahākassapa Gautami, the Buddha's nurse mother, had wanted to offer a new set of robes to the Buddha. The Buddha first declined that offering, but it was Ananda who insisted, by saying, that's your mother, and she has done so much for you by raising you, so you could at least accept her offering of the robes. And so then the Buddha said, no, it's not about that. If Mahākassapa Gautami, instead of offering it to just me, if she were to offer it to the entire Saṅgha, then the merits accrued would be much greater. So that was the background of the story. And that's the first part of this sutta, so you can read that. So, section 5. There are 14 kinds of personal offerings, Ananda. One gives a gift to the Tathagata, the Buddha, accomplished and fully enlightened. This is the first kind of personal offering. One gives a gift to a Pacceka Buddha. Pacceka Buddha is silent Buddha. It means Buddha who's fully enlightened by himself but does not teach. Okay? And this is the second kind of personal offering. And one gives a gift to an arhat disciple of the Tathagata. Arhat, yeah? And this is the third kind of personal offering. And one gives a gift to one who has entered upon the way to the realization of the fruit of arhatship. And that is the fourth kind of personal offering. And one gives a gift to a non-returner, anagami. And this is the fifth kind of personal offering. And one gives a gift to one who has entered upon the way to the realization of the fruit of the non-returner. And this is the sixth kind of offering. And one gives a gift to a once returner, sakadagami. This is the seventh kind of personal offering. And one gives a gift to one who has entered upon the way to the realization of the fruit of one's returner. And this is the eighth kind of personal offering. And one gives a gift to a stream enterer. And this is the ninth kind of personal offering. And one gives a gift to one who has entered upon the way to the realization of the fruit of stream entry. This is the 10th kind of personal offering. And one gives a gift to one outside the dispensation. One outside the dispensation means So we are now in the Buddha's dispensation. That means we still are fortunate enough to come into contact with the teachings of the Buddha. So this is called still within the dispensations. There will be a period of time between Buddhas where the teaching is lost. So that is what is meant by outside the dispensation. So one gives a gift to one outside the dispensation who is free from lust for sensual pleasures. And this is the 11th kind of personal offering. And one gives a gift to a virtuous ordinary person. And that is the 12th kind of personal offering. And one gives a gift to an immoral ordinary person. Ordinary person. So just ordinary person who doesn't keep their precepts. And this is the 13th kind of personal offering. And one gives a gift to an animal. And this is the 14th kind of personal offering. And here in Ananda, by giving a gift to an animal, the offering may be expected to repay 100-fold. And by giving a gift to an immoral ordinary person, the offering may be expected to repay 1,000-fold. And by giving a gift to a virtuous ordinary person, the offering may be expected to repay 100,000-fold. And by giving a gift to one outside the dispensation who is free from lust for sensual pleasures, the offering may be expected to repay 100,000 times 100,000-fold. And by giving a gift to one who has entered upon the way to the realization of the fruit of stream entry, the offering may be expected to repay incalculably, immeasurably. What then should be said about giving a gift to a stream entry? What should be said about giving a gift to one who has entered upon the way to the realization of the fruit of one's return, or to a once returner, or to one who has entered upon the way to the realization of the fruit of non-return, or to a non-returner, or to one who has entered upon the way to the realization of the fruit of arhatship, or to an arhat, or to a Pacceka Buddha? What should be said about giving a gift to a Tathagata, accomplished and fully enlightened? Now just read a little bit in section 7. There are 7 kinds of offerings made to the Saṅgha, Ananda. One gives a gift to a Saṅgha of both bhikkhus and bhikkhunis headed by the Buddha. This is the first kind of offering made to the Saṅgha. One gives a gift excuse me. One gives a gift to a Saṅgha of both bhikkhus and bhikkhunis after the Tathagata has attained final Nibbana. This is the second kind of offering made to the Saṅgha. It means after the Buddha's passing. One gives a gift to a Saṅgha of bhikkhus. This is the third kind of offering made to a Saṅgha. One gives a gift to a Saṅgha of bhikkhunis. And this is the fourth kind of offering made to a Saṅgha. And one gives a gift saying, appoint so many bhikkhus and bhikkhunis for me from the Saṅgha. And this is the fifth kind of offering. And one gives a gift saying, appoint so many bhikkhus for me from the Saṅgha. And this is the sixth kind of offering. And one gives a gift saying, appoint so many bhikkhunis for me from the Saṅgha. And this is the seventh kind of offering made to the Saṅgha. Okay, and then later on in the sutta, it talks about how those offerings or gifts can be purified. So I will just read the at the end of the sutta, there's some verses which summarizes the purification of the offering. So when a virtuous person to an immoral person gives, means when a virtuous person gives something to an immoral person, with trusting heart, a gift righteously obtained, placing faith that the fruit of action is great, the giver's virtue purifies the offering. So here sometimes we get questions, you know, a lot of times, right? You know, the question about if I want to give something to someone, but you know, that person actually probably doesn't deserve it, or you know, maybe I give some kind of donation or something to that person, and you know, who knows what they might do to that, whether they're going to put it to good use, or you know, what kind of person they are. But here it says that if we are virtuous, and if we, with a trusting heart, place faith in that act of giving, that the fruit of action is great, then the giver's virtue purifies the offering. So this is interesting, yeah, because it then answers that question. It's a very common question. Now, when an immoral person to a virtuous person gives, with untrusting heart, a gift unrighteously obtained, nor places faith that the fruit of action is great, the receiver's virtue purifies the offering. So here in the sense, you have someone immoral, but they give a gift to a virtuous person. Because the person that's receiving is virtuous, then the receiver's virtue purifies the offering. Okay. Now, when an immoral person to an immoral person gives, so both are receiver and giver are immoral, with untrusting heart, a gift unrighteously obtained, nor places faith that the fruit of action is great, neither's virtue purifies the offering. So, doesn't work. When a virtuous person to a virtuous person gives, with trusting heart, a gift righteously obtained, placing faith that the fruit of action is great, that gift, I say, will come to full fruition. When a passionless person to a passionless person gives, passionless means arahat, free from passion. So when an arahat gives to another arahat, with trusting heart, a gift righteously obtained, placing faith that the fruit of action is great, that gift, I say, is the best of worldly gifts. So I hope this answers a couple of questions around giving. And then Bhante Dhamma also sent, pointed to a sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya, which I'll share very quickly, on giving. Hang on one second. I will pop it into the chat. Oh, crap. No, sorry. Oops. Control A, Control C. Yeah. Here we go. This is Anguttara Nikaya, excuse me, 7.5.52. Giving, and I will read Thanisaro Bhikkhu's translation. Give me 1 second.
Sorry, can you please repeat the name of the sutta once again?
Yep. Excuse me. I'm just sharing my screen so that you can also see. It's called the Dana Mahapala Sutta. So Dana is to give. Maha is big, great. Pala is, fruit. Yeah. So sometimes we say Maga and Pala. So Maga is the way and Pala is the fruit. Sutta, discourse. 7.52, giving, in the Anguttara Nikaya, book of 7. So this is not a very long sutta, so I can read through. It's about what sort of mindset we should practice when we are giving. So thus I've heard that on one occasion, the Blessed One was staying in Champa on the shore of Gagara Lake. And then, excuse me, I'm trying to manage this sore throat while doing this. Okay. Then a large number of lay followers from Champa went to Venerable Sariputta. And on arrival, having bowed down to him, sat to one side. As they were sitting there, they said to Venerable Sariputta, "It has been a long time, Venerable Sir, since we have had a chance to hear a Dhamma talk in the Blessed One's presence. It would be good if we could get to hear a Dhamma talk in the Blessed One's presence. Then in that case, my friends, come again on the next Uposatha day, full moon day. Perhaps you'll get to hear Dhamma talk in the Blessed One's presence." As you say, Venerable Sir. The lay followers from Champa said to Venerable Sariputta, rising from their seats, bowing down to them, then circling him, keeping him on their right, they left. Then on the following Uposatha day, sorry, don't know why the app keeps going down. The lay followers from Champa went to Venerable Sariputta and on arrival, having bowed down to him, stood to one side. Then Venerable Sariputta, together with the lay followers from Champa, went to the Blessed One, and on arrival, having bowed down to him, sat to one side. And as he was sitting there, he said to the Blessed One, "Might there be the case where a person gives a gift of a certain sort and it does not bear great fruit or great benefit, whereas another person gives a gift of the same sort and it bears great fruit and great benefit?" So this is a question from Venerable Sariputta to the Buddha about giving. And it's a common question. See, even till today, people always ask this, on what occasion when I give something, it actually, there's benefit, or if I give something and there's no benefit. Even till today, this is a very common question. And obviously, the Venerable Sariputta would have known the answer, probably, but he was doing the lay people. Well, the lay people went to him first, so reading between the lines, again, assumptions and guesses, probably, the previous Uposatha day when the lay people went to Venerable Sariputta and asked, when can we get a discourse from the Buddha? Probably Venerable Sariputta, of course, he said, come back the next Uposatha, but he probably might have asked them, well, what questions do you have, or what do you want to know? What topic, right? So very common. Those of you remember when sometimes Bhante Vimalaramsi or Venerable Sister Kema, they would ask, well, what sort of questions do you want to know? What do you want to ask? Yeah, so it probably might have happened that way, So though the discourse is saying Venerable Sariputta is asking to the Buddha, quite likely the question might have come from the lay people themselves. Okay? Because those who came for the discourse were lay people. So the Buddha said, yes, Sariputta, that would be the case where a person gives a gift of a certain sort and it does not bear great fruit or great benefit, whereas another person gives a gift of the same sort and it bears great fruit and great benefit. Lord, what is the cause? What is the reason? Why does a person give a gift of a certain sort and it does not bear great fruit or great benefit, whereas another person gives a gift of the same sort and it bears great fruit and great benefit? Sariputta, there is the case where a person gives a gift seeking his own profit, with a mind attached to the reward and seeking to store up for himself with the thought, I'll enjoy this after death. So he gives his gift, whether it's food or drink or clothing or a vehicle or a garland or perfume or ointment or whatever, bedding, shelter, lamp, anything, to a Brahmin or a contemplative like someone who, like an ascetic or someone who practices, right? What do you think, Sariputta? Might a person give such a gift as this? What do you think, those who dial in? Are there people like that? Are we like that? Right? So Sariputta is saying, yes, Lord. Having given this gift, seeking his own profit, with a mind attached to the reward, seeking to store up for himself with the thought, I'll enjoy this after death. On the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the company of the 4 great kings. That is one of the planes of existence. Then, having exhausted that action, that power, that status, that sovereignty, he is a returner coming back to this world. Then there's the case of a person who gives a gift, not seeking his own profit, not with a mind attached to reward, not seeking to store up for himself, nor with the thought, I'll enjoy this after death. Instead, he gives a gift with thought, giving is good. And he gives his gift, whether it's food, drink, clothing, vehicle, garland, perfume, ointment, bedding, shelter, and a lamp, to a Brahmin or a contemplative. What do you think, Sariputta? Might a person give such a gift as this? Yes, Lord. And having given this gift with the thought, giving is good, on the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the company of the devas of the 33. And having exhausted that action, that power, that status, that sovereignty, he's a returner coming back to this world. Or, instead of thinking giving is good, he gives a gift with the thought, this was given in the past, done in the past by my father and my grandfather. It will not be right for me to let this old family custom be discontinued. Now, this is also not uncommon even till today, right? There are people who sometimes, they want to uphold a so-called, family tradition. Their fathers, their grandfather, or their mothers, their grandmothers before them, always being, let's say, donating to a particular temple or doing certain good to a particular organization, whatever, even if it's non-religious, right? And so they feel that, I need to keep that custom going in this family. And so they keep doing that. So that is also not uncommon. And on the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the company of the devas of the hours. And having exhausted that action, that power, that status, that sovereignty, he's a returner coming back to this world. Or instead, he gives a gift with the thought, I am well off. And these people are not well off. So I'm rich, but these people aren't. So it would not be right for me, being well off, not to give a gift to those who are not well off. So let's say there are people who are rich and they see people who are not so rich, not so well off, and then they think, that's not right. I should give to them. Since I can afford, they cannot afford, I should give to them. So there are people like that as well. On the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the company of the contented devas. Then, having exhausted that action, that power, that status, that sovereignty, he's a returner coming back to this world. Excuse me. Or instead, he gives a gift with the thought, just as there are the great sacrifices of the sages of the past, Ataka, Vamaka, Vamadeva, Vesamita, Yamatagi, Angirasa, Bharadvaja, Vaseta, Kassapa, and Bhagu. In the same way, will this be my distribution of gifts? So they give thinking of the sacrifices of great practitioners of the past. So these are just some examples, but of course we can think of, let's say, the senior disciples or the Buddha himself, the great sacrifices they made. thinking of that. So on the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the company of the devas who delight in creation. Then having exhausted that action, that power, that status, that sovereignty, he is a returner coming back to this world. Or instead, he gives me the thought, when this gift of mine is given, it makes the mind serene. Gratification and joy arise. And on the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the company of the devas who have power over the creations of others. And thus, having exhausted that action, that power, that status, that sovereignty, he is a returner coming back to this world. Or instead of thinking, when this gift of mine is given, it makes the mind serene. Gratification and joy arise. He gives a gift with the thought, this is an ornament for the mind, a support for the mind. He gives a gift, food, drink, clothing, a vehicle, a garland, perfume and ointment, bedding, shelter and a lamp to a Brahman or contemplative. What do you think, Sariputta? Might a person give such a gift as this? Yes, Lord. Having given this, not seeking his own profit, not with a mind attached to reward, not seeking to store up for himself, nor with the thought, I'll enjoy this after death, nor with the thought, giving is good, nor with the thought, this was given in the past, done in the past by my father and grandfather. It would not be right for me to let this old family custom be discontinued. Nor with the thought, I am well off, these are not well off. It would not be right for me, being well off, not to give a gift to those who are not well off, nor with the thought, just as there were the great sacrifices of the sages in the past, etc., etc. In the same way, this will be my distribution of gifts, nor with the thought, when this gift of mine is given, it makes the mind serene, gratification and joy arise. But with the thought, this is an ornament for the mind, a support for the mind. On the breakup of the body after death, he reappears in the company of Brahma's retinue. Then, having exhausted that action, that power, that status, that sovereignty, he is a non-returner. He does not come back to this world. This, Sariputta, is a reason. This is the reason why a person gives a gift of a certain sort and it does not bear great fruit or great benefit, whereas another person gives a gift of the same sort and it bears great fruit and great benefit. Interesting, no? Any thoughts here?
I'd like to ask a question, if that's okay.
Please.
What does it mean by an ornament of the mind?
This is an ornament, This is an ornament for the mind, a support for the mind. That means it is the practice of giving. When we think about, when I'm practicing giving, this particular practice of giving is to support my practice, my development of my mind.
Okay, that's good.
Yes? Sorry, was there another follow-up question? Did I miss something?
No, I'm just saying, oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, so also it takes practice. So many moons before today, so Bhante Dhamma Galvesi gave a talk, and then I raised a question. So, there are many people out there who, we are fortunate because we have had great merit to come into contact with the Buddha's teachings, and we come together and we study and we practice, etc. Right? But there are many, 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 many others out there who are less fortunate. So will this how is it possible for them to accumulate merit so that at some point in the future they will have the chance to come into contact with the teachings of the Buddha and practice, right? So my question really was, is there no chance at all for them forever? You know, and then Bhante Dhammagavesi reminded us that Bhante Vimalaramsi used to say that the easiest way for anyone to start their journey in this path is by giving, by practicing the act of, excuse me, the act of generosity. Give me 1 second. Yeah. Let me drugging myself with lozenges. So yeah, so the let's say to kickstart their journey, we can encourage others by giving. And one of the simplest acts of generosity, Bhante Vimalaramsi mentioned this before, is by smiling. That doesn't cost anything. Just by giving a smile to others, it's already changing their state of mind, their perception, right at the point when we are giving a smile to the other person. And I would say 9 times out of 10, when we give a smile to someone else, the other person will smile back. Is common. And so when they are smiling back, that is what also ignites the reaction that they are, they give something back in return. So a simple act of smiling to someone else ignites that so-called chain reaction of giving, even in the most simplest form. So this is like the most simplest form of giving that we can think of, not to mention what was mentioned here in this particular sutta. You know, like, what was it? Food, drink, clothing, a vehicle, car, or something, perfume or bedding or shelter. Not even talking to that level, just a smile. Yeah. Madam Nanda, yes, you raise your hand.
Yeah, that's a very good question and a brilliant explanation. It's a way of how we can purify our mind. Whatever we do, if we can purify our mind, that is a great gift and a dana. What do you think of that?
Absolutely, Madam Nanda, absolutely. You're absolutely right. It's a great way of training our mind, basically rewiring our brain. And it's brilliant how, even till today, as I continue my practice, sometimes I can't stop but think how brilliant Bhante Vimalaramsi packaged it for us, the 6 R's, and how the smiling or the re-smile is like sitting right there in the 6 R's. It's just simply brilliant, because just by doing that, even if we forget about the rest of the 6 R's, let's say, if we just remember to smile in whatever we are doing, whether we are in contact with another person, or whether we are washing the dishes, or whether we are cleaning the room, or whether we are doing our work as we are smiling, doing our work, whatever activity we are in, just by smiling, the whole mindset changes, it shifts. It's almost like a paradigm shift. And that's basically what we're trying to do here. We're trying to rewire our brain into a paradigm shift. And that paradigm shift is a paradigm that's laid out, well, not laid out, it's been brilliantly explained in a very structured form by the Buddha. So the Buddha figured it out after a lot of sacrifice, a lot of trying different things, basically through a lot of experiments. Madam Manjula Ji mentioned in one of her previous talks, right? It's all about experimenting with our mind states, with our brain, how we think, what thoughts occur during the day, whether it's in our formal sitting, whether it's in our interactions with others. We're just experimenting, we're just observing, seeing how the mind acts or reacts or responds. And then we use this, what the Buddha taught us, what the Buddha left us, really, you can think of it, it's a framework. It's like, I can't think of a better word. He laid out, like, he's like, this is the framework in how the law of nature, or the law of how everything works in what we see. This is how it works. And it's all summarized, packaged very nicely in the links of the dependent origination. So the Buddha figured it out through a lot of experimentation, and of course his accumulated merits through billions of lifetimes, right? And he figured out that how everything works is based on the dependent origination, the links of the dependent origination. And that Venerable Sister Kema, she used to draw a wheel. Those of you who remember, otherwise it's you can refer to the YouTube channel, Samatha Vipassana Trust YouTube channel, and there's a workshop, dependent origination workshop. And so she drew a wheel of 12 spokes in the wheel, and the weakest link, where it's the easiest to break, is the link of the tanha, the craving, the attachment. And as Bhante Vimalaramsi mentioned many times, craving manifests through tension and tightness that appears in the body and the mind. And so this is really what we're trying to train our mind in. We're training our mind to be able to detect when there is even the slightest of tension that arises, whether in the body or in the mind. That is a sign that we are attached to something at that point. And if at that point, right, see, the practice is about, depending on how we train our habitual tendencies, right? How quickly can we detect that tension arising? And at that point, whether we have to actively go 6 hours at that point, or it has automatically, the mind has automatically performed the 6 hour by itself, okay? And it depends on the tension and tightness that arises, depends on the attachments that we have. And they are all of varying degrees. And so the framework that the Buddha laid down, the explanation of how our mind works, which is the dependent origination, and the path leading to break that, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. At the center of that, well, I wouldn't say at the center of that, but in the path itself is right effort. And Bhante Vimalaramsi very brilliantly packaged the 6 hours in that. So right efforts is basically practicing the 6 R's so that we can, over time, just keep rewiring our brain to cut off those attachments. Sorry, I think I veered a little bit. Did I? Was that a question? Did I answer that properly?
That's brilliant explanation. Great.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Is there any other thoughts or questions? Sorry, we ran a bit over time today. Excuse me. No? Okay. So we shall end by sharing merits. Let me try to.
Are we going to continue this next week or?
So the schedule, we haven't had anyone sign up. I mean, not sign up, but booked for next Sunday. Would you prefer to finish Venerable MahaKaspa's reading next Sunday?
Oh, that would be great. Yes, please.
Okay. Then I'll book that in, and then we'll see if the following Sunday anyone else, one of the guides will be available, or Bante maybe. I'll book next Sunday in. Let me try and whip up the sharing of merits.
Thank you.
So sharing of merits is also an act of giving. And the act of sharing merits, this act of giving actually does great returns. But as we just read from the Anguttara Nikaya, it's about training our minds with the thought that when I share this merit, it's for the support of my training, my practice. Okay, so let me see if I can fit this into one screen. There we go. Share. Okay, so let's share the merits together. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus accrued for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so yes, I shall book in next Sunday to finish the reading on Venerable MahaKassapa's story. It's just talking about the verses from the Thera that were came from Mahākassapa. And after Mahākassapa, guess who's next? Venerable Ananda. That would be interesting, no? So yeah, after Venerable Mahākassapa, then we will continue with the reading on Venerable Ananda, the guardian of the Dhamma. He was the one gifted with amazing memory. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. Thank you for the opportunity of practicing this giving as well. And I wish you all a very pleasant week ahead. Take care, many smiles. Keep smiling. Stay healthy. Bye-bye.